It is July 6th on Wednesday, and we are finished with two work sessions. We will now begin with the council time agenda. This starts with public comment on any agenda item for today. So this is not testimony or comments about agenda items for next week or future public hearings. It is just about those agenda items that are on the council time agenda today. And I believe you know that if you're in the hearing room, please indicate to staff your interest and desire to testify. If you are calling in, press *3 to raise your hand, or if you're on your computer or tablet, use the raised hand icon. Staff, are there any who wish to speak?
Chair, we do have one individual online, Jason A. If you would like to state your name and spell your last name, go ahead, please.
I'm Jason Arand, A-U-R-A-N-D, and I would like to comment on your bridge replacement resolution that you're doing. I wish that the council would stop putting opposition for rail coming into Clark County and the citizens of Clark County to do the same. Anybody who actually rides C-Tran wants rail. It's more reliable. It doesn't get stuck in traffic. You're not waiting outside as long with rail. The opposition to the rail coming in, it's not money. It's delusions of thinking it's going to bring crime, which is wrong. The rail line does not cause crime to go up. It's just rail lines go through poor neighborhoods, and so there's going to be crime. With C-Tran, you always have to plan to be somewhere early, because if you try to get there when your appointment is at, you're going to be late, because C-Tran is always getting stuck in traffic. That doesn't happen with the rail. I'm done.
Chair, there are no other individuals wanting to speak.
And that includes online as well?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So we turn now to old business. Is there a motion for approval of the minutes of June 29?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? Changes? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? The minutes are passed as written. Next, we move to the I-5 bridge replacement resolution. Noting that this will be on our July 19 agenda for vote. Today it is for discussion. Are there any counselors who wish to speak? And there was one suggested amendment that came from Councilor Rylander. Would you like to begin?
Yes, Madam Chair. A couple of items. I'll start with page 2 of the printed document, and would note that for me in section 1, where it reads the Clark County Council supports replacement of the I-5 interstate bridge in a manner that supports relief of traffic congestion and seismic activity, I would suggest the addition of without tolls. Moving down to the alternative section 2, I have a suggested modification if we're going to use this wording. That's on line 42, where it says Clark County residents paying for, I would suggest considering adding construction, comma, maintenance, and then operating costs. The next portion, the end of line 42, starting with capital associated outside of C-Tran or other Clark County sites, established co-locations. I just raised a question. I'm not understanding what the value of having that statement in, and I would look for clarification. Moving over to page 3, lines 49 and 50, I would again note that the statement, if Oregon's max light rail system is introduced to Clark County, the costs must not be borne by Clark County residents. My perception is, based on the previous wording, this was a bit redundant. So this amended section 2 is proposed, just from a wordsmithing standpoint, feels to me like it could be sort of tightened up a bit. Other than that, those are the only specific suggestions I have for the council.
Comments on those suggestions? Speaking just for myself, I'm certainly supportive of your first point regarding tolls. However, I think that when we have a resolution that discusses tolls, that it needs to be quite comprehensive and go into that in quite a bit of detail. So my suggestion would be that we hold off on that until a future time when tolls are more in the public venue as far as discussion, and that we go into the subject in greater detail at that time. That's just my thought. Which of the sections here, Councilor Rylander, had you wanted more explanation on?
On line 42 and proceeding into line 43, or capital associated outside of C-Tran or Clark County cities established co-locations. I'm not grasping what that means or what the intent is in that wording.
Chair, I'm happy
to
to.
jump in, but you go ahead.
Well,
Yep.
yeah, since that was mine, I'd be happy to talk about it.
Go ahead, Councilor Lenz.
Yeah, so the section 2 alternative is a change that I sent in, and it was written in consultation with the C-Tran CEO. After our discussion last week, I went back and talked to him to confirm and make sure that my understanding was correct, and also to ask about language that would be most supportive of the efforts to move forward while also protecting Clark County residents' interests in a productive and meaningful way to help make our language as strong and useful as possible to ongoing negotiations. So the line that Councilor Rylander was asking about, to shorthand that, it's basically, we don't want to pay for anything. Clark County doesn't want to pay for anything that isn't a Clark County cost. The specific language here is that there are some properties that are C-Tran properties. There are some that are co-locations with small cities or other cities and C-Tran. So this covers all of the bases, as opposed to saying something like, we don't want to pay for anything that isn't a specific C-Tran expense. Then that might leave a door open for something else, like, well, this is actually property of Vancouver, so it's not a C-Tran expense. So this language here really just makes it more all-encompassing to say that if it's TriMet pays for TriMet, C-Tran pays for C-Tran, essentially, but covering our bases a little bit more explicitly.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Councilor Medvici.
Thanks, Councilor Lentz, for that. And I know she was on the RTC last night, where we did address that preferred alternative as well. And I did speak with Sean after the RTC meeting on this very same issue. I went and picked up the TriMet resolution just to kind of get a little bit more detail on what costs there would be to Clark County citizens with this extension of the light rail. So this is just scratching the surface of issues surrounding light rail. And it really highlights the main comment I was trying to make last night, that a bridge and light rail discussion should be separate and distinct projects. So, O&M costs, everything associated with an extension in Clark County will be paid for by Clark County, even though TriMet, it'll be a TriMet leg. It'll be run with TriMet trains. It'll be run with TriMet staff. TriMet will set fares. They're going to have to alter their own stations and staffing and trains to accommodate. It really is an enormous amount of planning and detail as a separate project. So whether or not there's a taxing district, which is very common with light rail, it wasn't mentioned one way or another. And I know it's somewhat of a tripwire for C-Tran, and at least I was told that if Oregon does, through TriMet, try to tax Clark County, that C-Tran would then pull its support. So I think there's a lot of vagueness in that issue, but the costs are real. The level of detail and impacts both in Oregon and in Southwest Washington are real, and really it shouldn't be thrown into the mix with a bridge replacement.
May I ask, therefore, Councilor Medviji, are you supportive of the Section 2 alternative as shown in the orange font or tan font, whatever?
I am certainly in support of the additional language that Councilor Lentz was adding. I think it is an important, and I'll use the word tripwire again, I think it should be in there. But I also support the language, and I don't know if it came from you or Dick Rylander, but I support what's on the screen now as
And would you mind scrolling down, please, on the this to the other lines? Yeah, thank you. Keep going. Thank you. That's good. Other comments about the additions in orange?
So, and I just want to highlight one thing since you scrolled down to it. I mean, in TriMet's resolution, they specifically said all costs will be borne by Clark County within that leg in Clark County. So it's maybe somewhat misleading already what TriMet has publicly stated.
If I may, I think that you're absolutely right as far as the potential conflict between statements, Counselor. And I think that that's actually that points out where we are in the process. That in this discussion of the modified LPA, this is the moment in time when all of the jurisdictions are putting forward, yes, we can keep talking and moving forward, but here are our concerns. Here is what we're looking for. So I would say that TriMet having phrasing like that makes it more important for Clark County to have phrasing that says that's going to be a negotiation and talking point. That's not a given. Just as if they were to see ours and say, well, that doesn't fit what's in our resolution, they would say, well, we're going to have to talk with them about that. I mean, that's as we've heard and we've seen so many presentations around the LPA. That this is not the end. This is just, yet another starting point, which was really my interest in trying to make this language around light rail a little bit more specific to the funding, in that that's where there's going to be negotiation and struggle. And I feel like the more we can put something forward that gives the people, since we're not a project, a jurisdictional partner and we're not at the table, if there's something we can do that gives the people who are negotiating on behalf of Clark County residents a little bit more to work with and push them forward, I think that's a way that we as Clark County could be more helpful to continuing to work on protecting the interests of Clark County residents.
So if I could just be clear, Madam Chair, I don't favor light rail right now. I think it should be a separate topic. And so I want to speak out as a county and say, we don't want light rail at this time. You know, maybe in the future, yeah. I think most people will want it. Our future generations will want that kind of rapid transit kind of opportunity, but now they don't. So I just want to be clear. I just think this has been a leap when they added it into their preferred option. I don't think it is universally supported by Southwest Washington at this time. And so that's why I wanted to have a resolution years ago about this bridge replacement, stating that fact.
Councilor Medvigi, if the very last sentence that's in orange were removed, would that be consistent with what you just said? I believe that it would, because what this last sentence introduces is the possibility that the light rail system would be introduced to Clark County. And you are saying, no, regardless of who bears the cost, it is not to be introduced. And so if that sentence were removed, would that make it sufficiently clear? Get out that subjunctive, of if. And I ask that, I think, because that's what I happen to personally support. And otherwise, Councillor Lentz, I think the suggestions that you have made are very good.
I'm sorry, Madam Chair, you want to take away the word if? I guess I did hear that properly.
Sentence, yes, that sentence.
Okay. You want to take away the whole sentence?
Yes, unless you can think of a good way to restate it, but I think it is restated in the prior language there because it expressly says that we prefer the bus rapid transit system.
Yeah, I don't have strong feelings one way or the other. The last sentence doesn't offend me. I mean, if it happens,
Well, the reason that it offends me, and offends is not probably the word, but that I don't find it appropriate, is because of what's alluded to in the white paper, which is the 3 votes of the people of Clark County that have taken place over the years, even the last vote stating that there is not a desire at all for light rail unless it is a vote of the people, regardless of costs, which is what this last sentence refers to.
well, if I had a counter suggestion, it would be just to make it a declaratory sentence that Oregon's max light rail system costs must not be borne by Clark County residents.
Yeah, and I thank you for that. I don't support it for the reason that I just mentioned, but let's hear from other counselors.
I would actually, because I already stated earlier that I thought it was almost a bit redundant, I would be supportive of removing that last sentence in its entirety. But I do have one other question, and that was earlier on my suggestions on line 42. I just want to make sure those were caught. We hadn't had any discussion.
Yes, I've noted them, and at the end of all of this, we'll clarify and make sure that I have everything
Well, in the interest of bridging the gap of that silence, I would be fine with the removal of that sentence. I don't think I read it the same way as you, Counselor, but I don't feel that it is harmed by, I'm sorry, Chair. I don't feel that it's harmed by the removal of it. So I am fine with that. As far as the addition, and I can't remember the specific wording, I know Lindsay's going to go over it, but as far as the addition in line 42, I don't think that's a problem either. I'm just rereading it to make sure. Yeah.
It would
I-
add paying for add addition of construction, comma, maintenance, and.
Yeah, I think that'd be fine. I think this language does the work that I was aiming for as far as helping provide more strength to Clark County's bargaining team, to use more of a labor negotiations language, but on this, and does assert the point that is the will of the majority of council. And I would say that I appreciate the conversation and discussion of this, because if this is where we go with this, I probably wouldn't have been able to support an earlier version of this language, but I appreciate the flexibility on the council's part. I think that also a resolution that has more of us signing, I don't know exactly where everyone's going to fall, but if we have more of us on it, that is also a much stronger position than a split vote. So thank you.
Agreed.
And I so strongly support that, Councilor Lentz. If we can all agree on this, that would be super.
Mhm. Our focus has been here on section 2 that is indicated as alternative. So we haven't stated this, but I presume that that means that the first section 2 is deleted. Correct?
That would
That
be
is-
correct, Chair.
Yeah.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Counselor Olson.
Yeah, I think we're probably getting toward the end of this conversation. So I would support your earlier comments with regard to tolls and separating that as a separate topic for later discussion rather than in this particular resolution.
Okay.
To capture what the council has discussed, page 1 would remain the same. The second page, section 1, would remain the same. The existing section 2 shown in the black would be eliminated. Section 3, the word of alternative will of course be deleted. On line 42, the sentence will read, Clark County residents paying for construction, maintenance, and operating costs of Max Light Rail, and continuing on. On the third page, the final sentence shown in orange will be deleted, and the remainder of the existing draft will stay the same. Does that capture all of the changes?
Probably. I do have a discussion point with Counselor Lentz, though, if we may. Would you go up to the top of the orange section, please? I've forgotten what line that is. Yes. I'm sorry, to the top of the next paragraph up, section 2, before it was changed. Yes, right there. If the county council opposes every light rail project in the county unless first supported by a majority of the voters, et cetera. If that sentence were to remain, would there be objection?
I would object to that.
And would you discuss that a little bit, Councilor Lentz?
I guess I think that it undermines the message of the later section. My attempt in tying it to costs was, again, because that's where, as far as those who were discussing and negotiating this project, that's where the conversation is. My concern about simply saying we oppose is that it makes us less relevant to the conversation. That, honestly, whether we like it or not, other project partners have agreed to. Vancouver, the city of Vancouver does want it. CTRAN is on the path toward accepting that this is a negotiated truce. I'm more interested in us being able to, even though we're not actually at the table, stay close to the table and be a part of it. And so I would strongly encourage us to frame our arguments in a way that will be more heard and potentially not just disregarded.
Okay, thank you for that explanation, with which I could not disagree more. But I do, I do understand what you're saying, and we know that the other partners have. I'm going to, sorry, use the word rubber stamp. Much of what has come forward regarding light rail, and we have not. And that does make Clark County different in its stance. And frankly, given the votes of the past in this county, I see that as our responsibility and a good thing that we're doing. So if it is presented here on the basis of cost, that is indeed a part of the argument. And so I am willing to be there with you on that. Are there, we haven't talked about other sections of the document, of the resolution. Is there anything else that council feels that we should take a look at? Okay, hearing nothing else, I believe that we are ready to move this forward as you stated it, Lindsay, for the July 19 agenda. Would you please circulate that to council once more before it is posted for that agenda? Is there time to do that, Kathleen?
Yes, Lindsay can send it out today, and there's time, but I would caution about any additional edits, as the council does not have another, well, we may have one more meeting before July 19th if there's additional edits, but yeah, Lindsay can send that out today.
Okay, thank you. So now let's turn to new business of the ODOT draft low income toll report and giving the feedback on that. That is not a simple document to go through. And I just wonder if we are positioned to know how this is going to, or when this is going to go forward. Could staff comment on that?
Just one moment, please.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to put you on the spot. Honestly, I thought that you already had in mind a date
Yeah,
and the timeline for
Bauer.
this.
Yeah, Chair Bowerman, we're going to pause the meeting just really quickly if we can.
Okay.
Excuse me, we apologize for the delay. There's a discussion happening here in the hearing room. So just as way of background, ODOT, as part of their planned potential tolling along the I-5 and I-205 corridors in the Portland area, has prepared this draft low-income toll report. This is a report that's required by the Oregon State Legislature to discuss the impacts of tolling on individuals experiencing lower incomes. So they are soliciting public feedback on this report until July 18th. So I sent this out as a council to see if this is something that you wanted to submit a public comment on. Of course, you each are allowed individually to respond, but to see if the council wanted to send a consensus response on this. I will note that while this report is specific to the I-5 and the I-205 corridors, Oregon, under the existing I-5 locally preferred alternative for the I-5 bridge replacement, Oregon is considered the likely tolling authority should tolls be imposed on the I-5 bridge. Of course, that decision on tolling has not been made. However, if Oregon is in fact the tolling authority and tolls are imposed on the I-5 bridge, they will likely look to what they are doing in the Portland area for indication for how they should address low-income individuals should tolls be imposed on the I-5 bridge replacement. So this provides a little bit of context for why the Clark County Council may want to weigh in on this.
Madam
And
Chair.
if we, yes, that sounded like Councilor Rylander.
So I have gone through the document fairly extensively and have used all the nice color highlighters and comments and so forth. I have a fair amount of detail, and my concern is that from a council standpoint, there's so much material and it's so detailed. We could spend an entire day going through all of the materials. So I don't know if it's feasible or reasonable from the council standpoint, more so perhaps more of an individual standpoint.
Certainly, and I think if there's a majority of the council that says today, yes, we want to have input, then I can follow up with each of you individually and kind of prepare comments for what each of you individually would want to say, and then we can bring that back to council time next week on the 13th. That would be before the July 18th deadline. The one thing I will say too, the tolls aren't planned to start until the end of 2024. So this isn't immediate, but the comments would be immediate. But yeah, I'm happy to circle back with everybody and kind of put together a draft compilation of all of the comments that the council may consider making. And that way I can talk to you individually too about, whether we should be making certain comments and what may make the most sense.
I'm happy to supply my comments to you.
And Councilor, I think that there would be benefit in all of us being able to see your comments as opposed to them being digested and then resent out in some other form.
I'm happy to do that however you want it done procedurally.
Mm-hmm. Kathleen, are we waiting for Kathleen's return? Does she have something that she had wanted to say? Lindsay, do you know?
No, I don't think she had anything she wanted to say. The only question really at this point, I know that there were enough councilors to put this on the council time agenda, but I haven't heard from a majority of the council that desires to weigh in on this. So if there is a majority of the council, then I can work on putting together a draft comment that I can bring back next week.
I know there were two of us. I and Councilor Rylander had wanted to make sure that it was on today's agenda. I would like to see council give feedback if we in fact coalesce on one or two or 10 items for purposes of feedback on this. So does the notion of coming up with your individual perspective, sharing that with Lindsay, and then going forward from that point to discussion on July 13 for final form, does that sound appropriate?
So to be clear, from my point of view, I have a great deal of reticence not wanting to get into Oregon's tolling program, especially if it's south of Portland and impacts other areas other than will impact Southwest Washington. I realize it's going to impact Southwest Washington. So I am interested in moving forward to fully consider what, if anything, we should say. So I look forward to Councilor Rylander's comments, and I'm just undecided at this point.
Mm-hmm. The reason why I thought that council would want to consider taking a position is because those tolls do impact our 78,000 residents of Clark County who are still paying Oregon sales tax and would therefore be subject to tolls on the I-5 and I-205. So that was my reasoning there. And I feel like it has so much impact on them and therefore on our county. And this report is, I don't know if all of you have had a chance to look at it. It is really very complex, and who actually ends up being excluded from paying tolls is a curious thing by the time you get to the end of the report. So it merits comment from us, I believe. Are there comments from anyone else on council? So I believe that three of us, and I don't know about Councilors Olson and Lentz, if you also would like to see it come forward on July 13, with whatever individual inputs have been assembled by Lindsay at that time. But hearing no, unless there are objections, let's go forward and do that. And if we are able to take a position, great. And if we don't, it will be appropriate then, as you said, Lindsay, for individual input. So we could do that in lieu of. Is there anything else to be said on this topic?
No, that's it. Thank you.
Okay, councilor reports. Again, I know everyone has been very busy with a lot of meetings recently. So is there anything that you wish to comment on from those meetings?
Madam Chair?
Yes, Councilor Rylander.
I'm sure other councilors have received within the last day or so a significant number of emails regarding fireworks. I know I have. And those have come from around the county, not just District 5. So I've made some notes, and certainly there are some people who continue to be concerned with the noise and impact on animals, et cetera. I just wanted to acknowledge that I am receiving those and am cognizant of their concerns.
Thank you. Anything from another councilor? Okay, work session requests. I see none. Is that correct, Kathleen?
That is correct, Chair. And we do have a community member here in the hearing room who would like to do a point of personal privilege. So if I can hand that over to her very quickly, that would be helpful. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, it's Bridget McCleeman here. I raised a point of personal privilege because I made some comments last week about public comment at the beginning of council time. This morning there were 2 work sessions before council time started. There was no way for a member of the public to know what time council time would begin. I heard you were still on the environmental fees one, so I raced over here. By the time I got here, you were onto the bridge resolution. And I think that's indicative of needing to change the process. If you do want public comment, then make it public comment and make it at a reliable time where citizens who are interested in the topic can say something. And that's all I wanted to comment on. Thank you for listening. Bye.
Thank you, and I appreciate your comment, Bridget, and I do have a quick question. If that public comment were moved before work sessions so that it was at a reliable time, at the announced time, would that do the job?
You need a specific time for the start of council time. It's hard to listen in when it randomly starts. I don't have unlimited data on my phone, for example. I can't sit and wait. So I would prefer that you go back to what used to be a standard time. It used to be 1 o'clock, and then it was 11:30. Now it can be any time. So if you're going to make decisions in council time, there needs to be a specific start time. That's my only suggestion. And I do think the rules of procedure should reflect this change. Thanks for listening.
Okay, thank you. Anything else, Kathleen? And I take it there are no work session requests, so we turn to Lindsay for any policy issue.
Thank you. I have one additional item for you this morning. So I know I've spoken to each of you in one-on-ones, but Comcast in the fall put forward a grant request to the State Broadband Office for rural broadband expansion in the Battleground Brush Prairie area. This grant request was denied due to the open access requirement that was in place at the time. After that, the council expressed some interest in possibly partnering with Comcast to utilize the county's ARPA funds to assist with the rural broadband expansion for that project, given the fact that it's nearly ready for construction. So we received a request from Comcast. The total project cost would be $6.6 million. Comcast would propose to contribute 27% of that and would request $4.845 million from the county. The project, once complete, would be complete by the end of next year and would provide an additional 503 passings. A passing is a household that has that would be allowed to have Comcast internet access. Of course, whether the household chooses to connect or not would be up to the household. So we can't say, oh, 503 houses would connect to Comcast, but it would be an additional 503 passings. So the question for you today is whether there's a majority of the council that wants to move forward in considering this, and then I will work with Mark Gasaway and Laura Young and Kathleen and Amber to prepare a more formal proposal for you next week for your consideration.
Madam Chair.
Councilor Medvigi.
So I want to begin by saying first, I've been working with Lindsay and others on this for the last few years, and I just want to really thank her for her staying with it, finding the levers to hopefully move forward. She has solved a lot of problems as we are beginning the process of really remediating our rural lack of Comcast and other company connectivity. So I'm in favor of moving forward, and I really am very appreciative for her nuts and bolts work on this issue that will benefit a lot of people in District 5 and District 4 particularly.
Are there others who wish to move forward? A thumbs up.
Madam Chair,
I see from Councilor Lentz. Was that in Councilor Rylander as well?
Right.
Okay, we would appreciate that, Lindsay, and we'll look forward to hearing more from you later.
Great. I'll have a staff report for you next council time. Thank you.
Great. We are ready now to move into executive session. There will be one item of collective bargaining. There is no report after, correct, Kathleen?
That is correct.
So, and council will be present I should say attorney type counsel will be present with the county council. And it is 11:28. The session should take 10 minutes. So we will see you back at council time at 11:40. This is July 6th, 2022. It is 11:42. I think we're a couple of minutes late only because a couple of us had some difficulty with the technical aspects of being able to get back into this meeting as required. But we have completed the executive session, 10 minutes in duration, and we have nothing else on the agenda. So council time is adjourned.